Hi, everybody. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback here. And our special guest is Katie Von Kohorn, a partner at Casner Edwards, specializing in trusts, estates, and exempt organizations. She's joining us now to discuss your estate planning strategies on YouTube and on WOR, the Financial Quarterback Radio Talk Show. Tax planning strategies, passing wealth successfully between generations. Hi, Katie. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
How has the pandemic changed the way people are approaching estate planning?
I think what's changed is really the pace of people coming in. It kind of threw into a bleaker light, if you will, the urgency of doing estate planning in the first place. I always say to people that our biggest enemy as estate planners is inertia. And so the pandemic kind of got rid of that right away. And some people, became more liberal in their feelings on distribution to kids and grandkids, maybe, want to make gifts sooner than they otherwise would. But I think the pandemic really spurred people who hadn't done any planning in a long time or had never done any planning to kind of come in and talk about what their estate plan should look like.
And when should individuals start thinking about estate planning and why?
Usually the typical time is when you get married or when you have your first child or when you have a live-in partner. And at that point, you want to organize your life and make sure that the people that you love get the assets that you have. I say anyone who has children needs an estate plan. And also, if you have a spouse who is not legally married to you, you need an estate plan. If you have a lot of assets, you need an estate plan. If you are content leaving it up to the state to decide where your assets will go when you die, then you feel free to not make a will and leave it up to the state. But I always tell people, if you don't have a will, the state decides where your assets go.
Now, can you give some examples of issues you've faced between families during estate planning distribution disputes that you feel could have been avoided with proper planning and communication?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think communication is the biggest kind of elephant in the room sometimes when people don't want to talk about their wealth and their plans. That happens a lot when, the senior generation is kind of old school. So they, when they grew up, money wasn't something that you talked about, and especially if you had a lot of it. That may be because we're in Boston, where the stiff upper lip is alive and well. But so they didn't grow up talking about money, and so when they accumulated wealth or inherited it, they were not used to talking to their kids and their grandkids about it. And so that kind of perpetuates through the generations. And I tell people, the more information you can give your heirs during your life, the better they will feel about what they receive after you've passed. After you're gone, nobody's going to know what you wanted them to know. And that, you run into that a lot with second marriages where both spouses have children from the first marriage. If the spouses don't share, with each other and then with each set of kids about what their plan is going to be, there's a higher likelihood of, increased hard feelings after somebody passes away. So I tell people to communicate as much as you can, show your kids your estate plan, explain to them how it works. And if you want to equalize among your children for, say, somebody has a very lucrative job and another one of your kids doesn't, do that during life. And it's a better idea to kind of make lifetime gifts rather than leaving unequal shares when you die.
So, yeah, this is kind of different. I have a lot of estate planning attorneys on throughout the years, and they talk about secrecy. They talk about, privacy. And so yours is a different take, which I kind of like. I like hearing some different things. So I don't know if I agree. I got to kind of work through this. In some ways, I agree. I would say 95% of the families are probably right, meaning people get hurt feelings.
Right. So, I am not a litigator. I don't like to fight. I don't go to court. So I like to promote kind of
Kumbaya.
shared communication among the generations. And I totally get that some people are very private, and a lot of times that is, about privacy outside of the family, right? And so a lot of the planning that you can do will maximize the amount of privacy that you have. Like if you put a trust in place, no one knows where your money is going, right? But, communication among the generations is always helpful, I think, absent some, addiction issues or creditor issues or other situations where it doesn't make sense. But for the majority of families, that's why I, recommend letting your kids know what your plan is going to be.
Addiction issues, creditor issues. We're getting an hour with an attorney for free. So this is your question. Time to ask any questions you want. And we're on one of the biggest radio stations in New York, WOR, every Saturday and Sunday at 9. You can check us out on Apple Podcasts. And now on our YouTube, we're live. So you can chat in our YouTube chat box if you have questions. Also, Katie, Harvard educated, went to NYU, so you're familiar with New York as well. Partner at Casner Edwards, focusing on estate planning. So there's a lot you just brought up. I mean, there's going to be more that I'm sure you want to talk about, but I wrote down a couple of questions based upon your wonderful talk just a few minutes ago. So number one, communicate with kids. What do you tell the kids? Percentages? What do you give me some flesh out? Because I wrote down
Sure.
Communicating with kids, addictions, creditors. I want to talk about all that stuff. But yeah, what do you communicate with kids? So if you have 3 kids, you say, I'm going to give you each a third. So quit worrying about who gets what.
Right. I think, you can start small when the kids are younger to just, introduce them to budgeting and planning in a smaller way. But a lot of times for people, who are kind of in the mid-range of my clients as far as wealth goes, say 2 to 5 million, they think that it's a lot, but they don't really want to share about it. And so I would, according to, your kids' abilities, if that's going to be during college, if it's going to be, if they take a while to find themselves, if it's going to be more when they're in their 20s or 30s, say this is what our estate plan looks like. You will all get a third and it will be held in trust under these terms, right? So every family is different. Some families like to say, it's my money, I built it, I don't want my kids to waste it, so they're going to hold it in trust for the children's lifetime. In some families, they think, I'm dead, I don't care about what happens to my money because I'm gone. So the kids can have it all right away. It doesn't matter how old they are, et cetera. So it's a very individual choice. And I lead all my clients kind of through the same decision-making process.
So what prompts that decision-making? So if I don't want to waste it, I do a trust. If it doesn't matter to me, do more of an irrevocable. Like what do you do? So take me through, pretend I'm a client. Although we're not giving legal advice over the radio. Actually, you know what?
That's true.
That reminds me, we have to take our first break of the hour. We'll be back with, I'm sure people mess up your name a lot. It's not an
Yes.
It's not that hard of a name.
It's phonetic.
It's very phonetic. It's like Jelinsky, but people mess it up anyway. Katie Von Kohorn.
Yep.
This is a lot of fun, folks. Give us a call now, 888-988-JOSH. If you want to get involved in some financial planning, estate planning, give us a call. Do you have any books you're pushing, Katie, or anything you're giving away?
I don't right now.
Okay. Do you take new clients? Will you give away a free consult to somebody who calls us up?
Yes, I do. The first consultation is free. I would mention that I am barred in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, so most of my clients are from those two states.
Okay, so if you're in Mass or New Hampshire, she'll see you, but she'll, do you work with any New York, New Jersey law firms, anything like that? Have referral relationships?
Yes, I have law school friends in New York and New Jersey.
Oh, great. So she
I
can
refer people to them.
So if you need that resource, folks, we'll give that to you. 888-988-JOSH. When you schedule and keep your no obligation financial planning with your estate in view, review at 888-988-JOSH. 888-988-JOSH. Calls now and you get the free Income for Life blueprint when you schedule and keep your no obligation review. And we'll be back after these messages. And we are back. This is Josh Jelinsky, the financial quarterback, with Katie Von Kohorn, talking about all matters estate planning. And I was asking Katie to walk us through, like, I guess there's really two types of people, right? One, people who don't want their kids to squander their inheritance. I think I would be in that boat. I didn't have any money. I really don't care if my kids are rich. I just don't want them to be poor, and I don't want them to piss away my money on booze and all kinds of things. So I guess I would be in that camp. And then there are people, many people say, you know what, my kids, let them divvy it up. I'm not going to be around. So what are you? Do you have any children, Katie? I mean, what would you be on that camp?
I have 3 kids, but my kids are very young, so they're not responsible enough to inherit anything at this point. But I think, depending on wealth levels, I'm kind of in the middle of the two camps. If you have enough money to establish trusts for your kids and your grandkids, if that's going to be a resource that they can have in the future, I would say, split the difference and have, the GST amount that can pass to grandkids free of GST tax, stick that in a separate trust, and then have the rest pass to your kids just outright if they're adults and responsible. And again, this is a really individual decision. So, your kids best, I tell my clients. And, if there's one of them who can handle the money and another who can't, that is a reason to treat them differently. But it's an individual decision-making process. I find sometimes clients who say, oh, yes, my kids can have everything at age 25 or 30. Then when the kids reach age 25, they change their minds and they say, no, they're not responsible enough yet. So, your answer to all these questions can change over time. And if it does, that's another reason to go in and update your estate plan.
And that's okay to change your mind, right? I mean, it's totally normal. And then you upgrade your estate documents. No, that's great.
Yeah, and I have clients.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, some people, later in life want to benefit charitable organizations as well, so they add those in. Other people have, more beneficiaries and friends of the family that they want to put in. So it's very common to have, several revisions to your estate plan throughout your lifetime.
So let's talk about the GST for those who are not familiar with that. If you want to define that term and talk about how much they can put in one of those types of trusts.
So right now, the generation skipping transfer tax exemption is $11.7 million, which is the same as the federal estate tax exemption. Some states, including Massachusetts, also have an estate tax. and those exemption amounts tend to be lower than the federal amount, not all of them. But Massachusetts, we do have a very low exemption, which is $1 million per person. But going back to the GST, that is the amount, $11.7 million this year, that you can leave to your grandchildren or great-grandchildren without any GST tax. We're looking at, some pending federal tax changes, and that amount may change, later this year if one of those bills comes into law.
So if you want to gift money and have some restrictions, you get gift, what is it, 11.18 million with the inflation adjustment, something like that? 11.2,
Yep.
I don't know, it changes a little bit every year. So you can give 11 for you, 11 for your spouse. So you can gift up to 22 million. And what's your preferred vehicle of choice? We've had all these people over the years, some like Dynasty Trust, some like this. Every attorney seems to have their own thing that they like. Is there a construction that you like a little bit better than others, and why?
Usually I do for grandkids either a separate trust for each one. If you're elderly and your grandkids, you think you're not going to have any more, or a pooled GST trust. And I would do an irrevocable trust in that case. We do put sometimes a limited power to amend in the trustees. So you need an independent trustee if you're going to set up these kind of irrevocable trusts for your grandkids. Some people like to pick a bank or a trust company. Some people pick a family friend. But you have kind of this pooled trust if the grandkids are young, and then when they reach a certain age, like I like 25, because it means usually the kids are through college, then you divide into shares for each grandchild, and those shares are held during their lifetime. We don't have dynasty trusts in Massachusetts, but I sometimes work with clients who are establishing those in Delaware or other states that do have those.
Sure. And so that's cool. Now, this is good. We're learning a ton on Estate Planning 101 and 201. So we're getting a little more advanced here with these GST type trusts. The whole idea here is you spend so much of your hard-earned time making money that then to have your, kids and grandkids squander it, I don't know, kind of view it as depressing, right? So it's very important to plan for your ultimate demise, even though most people don't want to think about that. I mean, I have young kids. I have 6 kids, 12 and under, and 1 more on the way. Can you believe it?
Wow.
So I do everything for my kids. So I love estate planning and talking. To me, it's a cool concept and something that for some people, they don't want to think about it. And we're going to talk about that. I remember my wife, for years, she would not want to talk about this. She only started talking about this in the last couple of years. What do you say to that person? Because I don't know, my wife just did not like to plan for our demise. So she said, "Yeah, that's what you do for a living.
Sure,
you need to do that." Like it was superstitious or something.
If you're not making a plan, if you're not writing a will, you're not writing a trust, you are making a plan. And that is that the default state law will apply when you die. So, if you're sticking your head in the sand, you're saying, okay, I want the state to pick for me. So usually when I kind of put it that way to clients, they say, okay, I want a plan. And so then we go forward. But it is it's a tough thing to think about. Sometimes I appeal to clients who want to think about their kids if they have young kids. A lot of people can get stuck on who will be serving as the guardian. And I tell people to separate the money from who's going to be the guardian. So if you have a fantastic family friend, or your sibling is a fantastic person, not great with money, you can still name them as the guardian because they won't be in charge of the money, right? So sometimes that can help people get over that hump.
Yeah, so you can name your crotchety uncle
by naming two people at a time. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, so you can name your crotchety uncle, who's a nice guy, but he's good with money, maybe not good with kids, the trustee, and your friend who's great with kids, you can name them as guardian. So you can separate them. That's
right. Yep, and that's very common, and I recommend that people do that.
And then you had another thought. I interrupted. Go ahead.
Oh, sure. You can also name couples as guardians, but, if you like the couple, but you wouldn't want either one, you can, name them as long as they're both still alive and able to serve. So you can kind of put all kinds of tweaks into that section of your wills.
Yeah, it's tough too. Like both of my parents have died. And it's like you start to think, like, who's going to really take, 6, soon to be 7 kids? Yeah, it's quite an undertaking. So this is a funny thing. This is a tip for you, by the way. You may not ever have had this problem. We have other friends who just, you kind of get friends who also have a lot of kids. So we cut a deal with them because no one would want to take their kids but us. And no one would probably want to take our kids but them. So sometimes if you find somebody to buddy up on the guardianship, I don't know. Have you dealt with that? Because that to me.
That's a great solution. And a lot of people think that they should name their family members, even if, they're not as close to their family and their family lives far away. And I tell people, look around you in your village, who are, your best buds who would drop everything to help you. And those are the people you should kind of look to be the guardians.
Yeah, like we have a very close friend. She's like, yeah, as long as you let me live in your house or something, I'll take care of all your kids. But who says that? They want to take care of our 6 or 7 kids. I mean, so that's and I really believe them. They would. So, but that is rough though, to say to like a family member, hey, I'm not going to give my kid to you sometimes. So you got to be careful about that, I guess, too. But
yeah,
blood is thicker than water, right? Whatever that phrase is.
Yeah.
Something like that. Although sometimes, like you said, just because they're relatives, maybe a friend would be better being the guardian. It depends on shared values, shared, some people, it's like my wife also homeschools her kids. Some people could never homeschool, as the COVID pandemic talked about. Although the thing that people were saying was homeschooling isn't what we do. What was going on in homeschool, and the schools that were like having kids learn through computers, we weren't doing that. We don't do that. Kids read books. They go to lectures. It's fun. My wife does a great job with them. And then I occasionally come in and give a talk. Although they find me more boring. I don't really do. They don't like it when I do stuff. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Katie Von Kohorn talking estate planning 101. Katie's been so generous to offer up some of her time to those of you who schedule and keep your no obligation review. So if you want an estate planning review, tell our schedulers when you call us at 888-988-JOSH. If you call us right now, you'll get the free book, The Income for Life Blueprint, for free when you schedule and keep your no obligation review. If you have something to say in the chat bar, you can ask us a question, and it could be any financial question you want on all matters estate planning, charitable trusts, tax planning, whatever it might be. Give us a call, 888-988-JOSH. We're here for you with your financial planning questions, especially today as they relate to estate planning, because You need a financial advisor who respects an estate planning attorney and an estate planning attorney who respects a financial advisor. They're two different disciplines, and they need to work hand in glove because you need financial tools. I was talking to somebody today. They're worried about XYZ getting money. I said, hey, you need to talk to an attorney, get something set up like a trust. I'm not an attorney, don't claim to be. And then they wanted us to manage the money while they're gone. So you can name a financial advisor to the trust. But we'll be back after these messages. Give us a call, 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-5674, 888-988-JOSH. We'll be back after these messages.
The preceding program was sponsored by the Jelensky Advisory Group.
Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications, including 5-Star Wealth Manager, Advisory of the Year finalist by Senior Market Advisor, and Top of the $1 Million Roundtable, are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Josh Jelensky or Wealth Quarterback LLC. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Wealth Quarterback website at www.jelensky.org. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to affect transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. Due to various factors, including changing market conditions, the information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, Josh Jelensky and Wealth Quarterback do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature, is provided for informational purposes only, and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Advisory services offered through Wealth Quarterback LLC.